Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to the Football Friday Tailgate Show here on WGOL. My name is Kadin Pounders. I'm your host, and I'm the sports editor at the Franklin Free Press. We're glad you could join us again here this Friday night for another show, another Football Friday Tailgate Show. I think we've got another good show for you here tonight. We've got, in our next segment, I'm interviewing the head coach of the Red Bay Tigers, Tyler Jeffries. He's in his first season. He's got the Tigers off to a 2-1 start so far this year. Of course, we'll have L.A. Luke Shepard, and his locks of the week in segment 3. And then to wrap up the show, I've got my friend Dustin Pollard, a former sports editor at the Florida newspaper at UNA. He's living in Nashville now and doing some stuff in comedy. Go back to Luke, I should say that to give you a peek behind the curtain, when we recorded that third segment, his locks of the week, I think that was on Tuesday. He had not yet released his new song, "How About You." It was a music video that came out on Thursday night. He had a music release party at Tradition Sports Deli here in Russellville. Had a good crowd and played a show. So I want to congratulate Luke on that. But like I said, we got a good show for you here today. A full show last week. Couldn't get 4 segments. Had to push out the first and last segments. Had to fall through with the coach, but like I said, we got Tyler Jeffries on. Talked to him for a few minutes in segment 2, but of course in segment 1 we're going to break down all the high school football action happening here in Franklin County this Friday night. We had 2 teams off last week. Belgreen and Tharp Town both had bye weeks, so we just had 4 teams playing games last week. A pretty good showing for Franklin County teams last week. Phil Campbell, Red Bay, and Russell all got wins. Vina was the lone loser last week. Red Bay got a big win over Winston County, 29-28 thriller. Had to play some defense at the end. Had to make some plays, a 4th down and 1 play to kind of seal the deal there at the end. But a great win for Red Bay last week against Winston County. Winston County was the defending region champion last year, so that's a huge victory for Red Bay. Already got as many wins now as they did all of last season. So congrats to Red Bay on their win last week. Phil Campbell got got their first win of the year against Oakman, 36-30. Pulled out, held on really at the end of the game. Had a 16-point lead, which in the 4th quarter quickly evaporated to a 6-point lead. But Phil Campbell's defense was able to get a stop, get an interception, and in that game, 36-30, their first win of the year. Get that win at home. So congrats to Phil Campbell. And then Russell last week, a bit of an ugly win. That's how Coach Goodwin described it. I would agree. A 27 win against East Limestone. Russell got off to a hot start, returned the opening kickoff. Ben Pounders did, 88 yards, 89 yards. Got off to a 7-0 start with the opening kickoff, returned for a touchdown. On the opening drive, East Limestone's starting quarterback went down with an injury and did not return. And for the rest of the game, the Indians pretty much ran a Wildcat offense, heavy package Wildcat offense, which was pretty effective for most of the game. But Russell's defense, as it has been for most of the year, was stout, bend don't break. East Limestone was able to put together some drives, but was never able to finish in the end zone. But one time, on that very first offensive possession they had, Russell was able to make adjustments and keep East Limestone out of the end zone for the rest of the evening. Really, the game came down to the 4th quarter. I think Russell only had 2 first downs for the entire game going into the 4th quarter. You had some things going on offensively, scored a touchdown, with about 4 minutes left, I believe. And I had a chance to go down and score again, but fumbled. Gave East Limestone some life there with, less than a minute to play, no timeouts. And East Limestone, just trying to throw up a miracle, threw a pick 6 that was returned by Darren Jones for about 50 yards, and that's what made it 20-7. So not the cleanest game by Russell last week, but as Coach Goodwin said, a win is a win is a win. So they'll take it, and they move to 2-0 in region play. And that brings us to this week's contest. I should mention Vina. Vina did suffer another defeat last week of 18-8 at Schultz Christian. I said that prior to that game. I think that was probably Vina's easiest opponent remaining on this schedule. They weren't able to pull out a win, but still plenty of time to turn around if you're the Vina Red Devils. Now let's take a look at this week. Belgreen's back in action. They are going to travel to Tanner. Belgreen's coming into this game 3-0, the only undefeated team in Franklin County, and they go into Tanner undefeated. Tanner's 0-4. Last time out, Belgreen obviously had the bye week last week, but in their last game they had a 34-0 homecoming win over Tharptown. So, Belgreen has had success both offensively and defensively this year. Belgreen has blown out, all three of its opponents this year, averaging about 43 points per game, and the defense has done its part, allowing just 2 touchdowns all season. So, Belgreen's off to a great start. I don't know. Tanner was probably going to be the toughest game they've had so far, just because it's a bigger school, probably the biggest school they've faced. Tanner's a 2A school, but obviously Belgreen's played Tharptown, which is a 2A as well. Belgreen's 2A, but I think both of those schools are a little bit smaller than Tanner. So should be a good game, and perhaps Belgreen can pull that one out and improve to 4-0 on the season. Next week, the Bulldogs will travel to face Cherokee High School. Phil Campbell this week is going to travel to Winfield. Again, this will be a tough contest, a tough road contest for the Bobcats. As I said last week, they pulled out a 36-30 win over Oakman. This, I believe, will be a tougher contest at Winfield. Phil Campbell's 5-13 all times against Winfield, and the Pirates beat Phil Campbell 43-28 last year to continue a 5-game winning streak over the Bobcats. Winfield this year is averaging about 30 points per game, so definitely Phil Campbell's going to need another great performance from its star players, such as quarterback Hasten Scott, a junior, who last week rushed for over 100 yards, threw for over 100 yards. Sophomore running back Braxton Kool-Aid Downey, who was the Franklin Free Press Athlete of the Week last week. He scored 4 touchdowns on the ground against Oakland in the win. Rushed for over 100 yards in that game and scored 4 touchdowns. So I think that the Phil Campbell offense is going to have another good performance, put up some points against this Winfield team that can score as well. Really, the Phil Campbell defense came up clutch last week against Oakman and held on at the end. I think they'll need another solid performance. I think talking to Coach Jacob Hamilton felt that his Phil Campbell defense until maybe the last 10 minutes of the game played a really great game. Didn't give up any points in the third quarter. So I think he was pleased with the defensive performance and the effort in that game. I think you'll need to see more of that this week against Winfield on the road. Next week, Phil Campbell will host Class 1A Hackleburg on the 26th. Up next, we've got Red Bay, another tough game for a Franklin County team. Red Bay hosting Lexington. Lexington comes to this game 3-1, 2-0 in the region. Last week was a really tough contest for Red Bay. I'm sure they were glad to have that game at home against Winston County. I'm definitely sure they're glad to have this game against Lexington at home. And Coach Tyler Jeffers will talk more about that and his team's game against Lexington and last week's game against Winston County in segment 2. Red Bay comes into this game 10-17 all time against Lexington. Last season, Lexington walked away with a 35-24 win to make it 4 straight over the Tigers. These teams have met every year since 2020. That was the last year that Red Bay beat Lexington. The Bears coming to this one, they're averaging 48 points per game. Red Bay, is clearly able to score points, so how consistently they're able to do that, through 30 games, it's hard to tell. This will be a huge test for that offense and a big test for the defense. Lexington comes into this game averaging 48 points per game, surrendering just 12.5 points per game. So a tough one on Red Bay's hands. I'm sure they'll be looking to running back Jackson Vinson, the senior, who's well on his way to another 1,000-yard rushing season. Quarterback Jeremiah Thorne, who's done a good job under center this year, and receivers Jackson Swan and Davian Colburn, who both had good games against Winston County in the 29-28 thriller last week. So good luck to Red Bay. Next week, Red Bay is going to host state line rival Belmont, and welcome back former head coach Michael Jackson to Fred Bostic Jr. Stadium. Our next game up is Russellville traveling to Ardmore. Russell coming in 2-2, Ardmore 2-2. The difference is that Russellville is 2-0 in the region. Ardmore is 0-2. As I said earlier, Russell coming into this game off a kind of ugly 27 win over East Limestone. I should probably get out of the prediction business. Last week I predicted that Russellville would probably walk all over East Limestone. I was wrong. This week I'm predicting that Russellville is going to have a tough contest against Ardmore. Maybe I'll be wrong again. Hopefully, I'm sure Coach Goodwin and the Russellville Golden Tigers are hoping that I'm wrong again this week. But Russell comes into this one with a long history of beating Ardmore. They're 9-1 all time. 9 straight games. This will be the 10th straight game as region opponents. The only other game was way back in 1937. That was the first meeting, and it was the only game that Ardmore won. They beat the Golden Tigers 38-7 way back in 1937. What do you expect in this game? Like I said, I don't think it's going to be a walkover. I could be wrong, and maybe I will be. But you look at Ardmore's last 2 games. Beat down by Priceville, got shellacked by number 4 Fairview, who Russell will play in a couple weeks. Priceville game, the Fairview result is kind of expected. The Priceville loss for Ardmore not as expected. So you can probably look at those two games, those 2 results, and say that Ardmore's not very good. But if you look at them on film, as I have on Huddle, you look at their offensive line. They're big boys. They've got a quarterback that can throw the ball pretty well, and they've got a running back that can really make player. He's really athletic, really fast, and can make defenders miss in space. So that may give Russell's defense some issues. That's to be seen. Obviously, for Russell's offense, you can't do what you did last week, which was not much. I think one first down in the first half. More punts in that game than they had than the previous 3 games combined. I think at the end of the game they only had in the first half for sure they didn't have even 100 yards of offense. Weren't able to run the ball very well. So I expect that Russell's offense will have a better showing tonight on the road at Ardmore. They'll have to if I think they'll have to if they want to win that football game. Just kind of shake it off. Don't know exactly what was wrong, with the Russell offense last week, but you got to give some credit to East Limestone for having a game plan and making Russell go 3 and out. And on the flip side of that game, they were able to run a lot of clock because all they did was run the ball. Probably out of necessity, they were in that Wildcat offense, and I think the Russell defense, much credit to them for holding East Limestone to 7 points. Had to make some adjustments. It probably wasn't exactly what they were planning on, and so so kudos to the Russell defense for keeping the offense in the game, and the offense was able to finally get some points in the fourth quarter, and they iced the game with that pick 6 as the time expired. So they moved to 2-0 in the region, and we'll see what they can do tonight at Ardmore. Kind of a long journey, and about an hour and a half from Russellville. But they'll be rewarded with an off week next week to prepare for number 4 Fairview the following week, which will, if Russellville wins tonight, might end up being the conference or the region championship. Big test tonight for Russellville, and they probably want to have a good showing before they go and face Fairview in 2 weeks' time. In these next 2 games, something's got to give. We got 4 winless teams coming up here. Tharptown 0-3, traveling or hosting Decatur Heritage in their first region game of the year. Decatur Heritage comes in at 0-3 as well, and 0-1 in region play. Tharptown was off last week, but previous to that, they fell on the road at rival Bellarine 34-0. Tharptown has never beat Decatur Heritage. I would imagine that this is probably one of the better opportunities to beat that program. Last year, Tharptown was beat 68-0 at Decatur Heritage, but they got them at home this year, and we'll see what the Wildcats can do. Obviously, still trying to improve under Coach Brian White. I think if you look at some of the results, it looks like Tharptown's defense has gotten a little bit better. The offense is still struggling to score points, though. So maybe something's got to give. Like I said, one team is going to walk away tonight with a win, their first win, and hopefully it's Tharptown. Similarly, we have Vanna at 0-3, 0-2 in their region, facing off against Cherokee, who is 0-4 and 0-2 in the region. Like I said earlier, Vanna fell last week 18-8 at Shoals Christian. They've got Cherokee at home. Vanna's 8-16 and 1 against Cherokee in a series that dates back to 1934. Cherokee owns the series as of late, though. They've won 4 straight over Vanna. Vanna's last win against the Indians was back in 2020. Last season, Cherokee won 48-8. Vanna, like Tharptown, defense has not been bad. Offense has struggled to score points. Talked to Coach Cody Renfro at the beginning of the year, and he talked about how they were having a lot of players that were changing positions. Obviously, they had to replace a bunch of seniors from last year's team who were very instrumental in their offense. So it looks like Vanna at the moment is just having a tough time trying to replace those guys and get on a roll. One team again is going to walk away with a victory in this game, and hopefully it is the Vanna Red Devils. Next week, the Red Devils will travel to Tharptown, and if neither of these teams win, that will be a big battle next week in Franklin County. Tharptown versus Vanna next week. All right, so that's all the action we got going on here in Franklin County football-wise. Stay tuned for our next segment. We're going to have Coach Tyler Jeffries of the Red Bay Tigers on it. He's going to talk about his team's game tonight against Lexington. You're listening to the Football Friday Tailgate Show here on WGOL, and we will be right back. Welcome back to the Football Friday Tailgate Show. We are pleased here in segment 2 to bring you Coach of the Red Bay Tigers. That's Tyler Jeffries. He's in his first season at Red Bay, and he has the Tigers at 2-1 as they head into a huge region matchup at home against Lexington. All right, Coach, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on. I've talked to you before, but this is your first time coming on this show, the Football Friday Tailgate Show. You've had history with Red Bay before you came here. Can you talk a little bit about that you're coming back to Red Bay and how that's been for you so far this year?
Yeah, I grew up there until I was 15, so I spent more than half my life there. Played ball there until I was in the 9th grade and ended up having to move. But it's been more like home. Obviously, I feel like I'm back at home, and everybody has been real good to me. And like I said, the kids have worked really hard, and that's really what it's about. And like I said, it's definitely been tough because I know the standard, and I want to make sure that we're to there. It's just like I said, it's still a building process. But so far, man, everything's been good. And, win or lose Friday night, we still got the rest of the season ahead of us, and we just got to continue to get better and do the things that we do.
2-1, got a win in your debut as head coach at Red Bay. A loss in between this most recent win against Winston County last week. Coach, can you talk about how your team was able to get those 2 wins and what it means to be able to get that win last week? A thrilling game, ended 29-28. You guys pulled out at home. Can you talk about that game last week and what it meant for you guys, both in just for confidence and also in the region picture?
Yeah, I think that I guess in practice before we started playing, our guys were just out there playing. I feel like they were having a lot of fun, and both games, I tried to challenge those guys. Even in our jamboree, I didn't feel like we turned it loose. my message to them was, hey, look, go have fun, have a lot of energy. And I think that made a big difference in both of those wins. I think we played with a lot of emotion. We made a lot of mental errors still in the games that we played just because we haven't been with them, very long. However, I think that, we're starting to get a little bit better on that. And we got to reduce those mental errors, especially in this big region game with Lexington. Like I said, Lexington County was a really good football team, and we overcame some things later in the game to help us win. But kudos to those guys. Those guys, seemed like they were clicking on all cylinders and never really bowed down no matter what. They answered real fast as soon as we went up 2 scores. So that's one thing we have to do a better job on is finishing the game against those hard opponents. Talking about this week, obviously Lexington is a really good team. They're really diverse. Obviously, this game for me is kind of a close game just because I worked for Coach Mask at Calvert County, and their offensive coordinator worked for my dad. I was around him my whole life. He was at Red Bay for quite a few years also calling the defense, and I know those guys do a really good job. I also have Coach Lord there who's a Lexington head coach who's had a really good career there, along with Coach Rice from Wayne County, who had a really good career there. So they definitely got a lot of good coaches that know what's going on, and they're going to have them ready to play. And like I said, it's a big game. It is a big game for both of us. They're good. They're very diverse. They're able to run it. And they're able to throw it really well. One thing that stands outside to me is their defensive line. Their front 6 is probably the best front 6 in the region. And it's going to be hard to move it on them, but at the same time, we gotta continue to do what we do and just play hard. Like I said, I think it's going to be a good football Friday night.
You mentioned a little bit, but and when I've talked to you in the past, you talked about when you first got the job at Red Bay, using some of the strengths of this team. Obviously, you guys have some athletes on that team. Jackson Vinson, who rushed for over 1,000 yards last year, and looks like he's well on his way to surpassing that again. This year. Jeremiah Thorne, the quarterback. You've got a couple of good wide receivers. When you play Lexington Friday night, can you talk about how what you're gonna have to need from those guys and on the offensive side of the ball and also on the defensive side of the ball, some of those guys play both ways. What do you need to see from some of those? I guess from the star power on your team, what do you need to see from those guys to get the win?
Well, offensively, like I said, those guys probably have the best front 6 in the region. So, and we do have some weapons, and it's all going to come down to, hey, are we going to play hard? Are we going to do the things we can do with those guys? But the game's going to be won up front on both sides. And like I said, it's going to determine, can we move those guys on defense? Or on offense? Can we execute? Can we match up with their front 6? And like I said, I think we got a good opportunity to go out and play and do so. We're just going to have to be able to play as hard as we can play, and I know they will on that side of the ball. Like I said, they're a really good football team. Switching over to defense, I think defensively, like I said, they're very diverse. They have a really good run game and they have a good pass game. They've scored a lot of points in the past 2 games, and I think I'm always a big component of stopping the run and they can throw it, but they throw it just as good as they run it. So we're going to have to be multiple. We're going to have to be able to cover and we're going to have to be able to stop the run and we're going to have to be able to pressure. And so we got a tall task for us. Like I said, I think we're able to achieve it. We have a good opportunity in front of us. We got to play as hard as we can play and leave it all out there Friday night. And that's all you can ask of the kids.
Last question for you, Coach. This game is the second of a 4-game home stretch. You're 2-0 at home so far. How important is it, and what message do you have for Red Bay fans who are coming out Friday night, and how important is it, to be able to play? What kind of advantage do you have being able to play these games at home?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great advantage for us. Like I told somebody today, we have a great community that's going to support us. Like I said, the best advice, I guess, is to show up and be loud, and then continue to support us, win or lose. And like I said, I think the kids are going to play really hard on both sides, Lexington and Red Bay, and I think it's going to be a good game. And I think somebody had said it. This is a big game for us and a big game for them. It could be the region championship. You really don't know. But like I said, at the end of the day, it's the next one, and we can't make it bigger than it is. We just got to go out and play. And like I said, I know Lexington, Coach Mass, they'll have those guys ready to play. So the biggest thing for us is we got to get our kids ready to play and execute. And like I said, to answer your question, though, it's good to have them at home for sure, and we practice every day on that field, and so I think that helps our kids too feel a little bit more comfortable because they're there every day. So.
All right, thank you, Coach Jeffries. Thank you for joining us here on the Football Friday Tailgate Show, and good luck to you guys against Lexington on Friday night.
Thank you.
All right, that was head coach of the Red Bay Tigers, Tyler Jeffries. Thanks again to him for joining us on the show this evening. We're going to be right back after a break with segment 3 tonight. That's going to be LA's Locks of the Week. So I hope you'll stick around and stay tuned for that. And we'll see what Luke thinks about some of the college football games happening this weekend. Stay tuned here to the Football Friday Tailgate Show here on WGOL. Welcome back to the Football Friday Tailgate Show. I am now joined by Lucas Shepard, LA Shepard, who's going to give us his Locks of the Week coming into this week. Lucas is 8-7, still hovering above 500 with his win-loss in his picks for the year. Luke, what was your impression of how you did last week? 2-3 overall last week?
2-3 overall last week. Same as the week before that. Had a real good start to the year in week 1, though, where I went 4-1. So let's not forget about that. It's easy to forget, And again, in a sport like this, it's what have you done for me lately?
And what you've done for us lately is lose more than you've won. But we're, as you said last week, if you're at a little over, if you're 60%, you're doing fine. So that's round about what you're at right now, 60%. So, Luke, what games do you have for your locks of the week this week?
Yeah, well, the first one is a 11 a.m. game. It's a Big 12 matchup. You got TCU hosting SMU. I really like TCU in this game for a couple different reasons. SMU struggled, obviously losing the game to Baylor in a couple overtimes there was not on the agenda for the SMU Mustangs. But beyond that, they've played East Tennessee A&M, I believe it is, a 42-13 win there. They played at Missouri State, where they won the game 28-10, but an 18-point win over an inferior opponent like that raises some eyebrows. As I look on the other side, TCU has come out and absolutely dominated pretty much everybody they've played, which, it's only 2 games, but, traveled to Chapel Hill and played North Carolina, where they just absolutely slaughtered the Tar Heels, 48-14. And then Abilene Christian, where they won 42-21. Obviously, probably not showing much in that game. But TCU is a 6.5-point favorite in this game. They're playing at home. If I'm playing this one early on, it's one of those games that I'll probably tune into. So I'll probably play a little bit of money on it here. TCU at -6.5. I think they win this game and cover the spread.
All right. What you got next?
Next one for us is going to be Syracuse at Clemson. I know Clemson seems like they've been in every one of my sets of picks over the last couple of weeks. But this time I'm going to go against them, not outright, but I'm going to take Syracuse. Syracuse is a 17.5-point dog. I understand it's on the road in Death Valley. Clemson is they're just reeling at the moment.
Yeah, I was gonna say that Dabo Swinney might welcome the thought of you going against him this week.
That may be true, but I've been right.
He's had to play the transfer portal and you.
That's true. He's got a big rivalry with that transfer portal, but no, Syracuse. The 17 and a hook here feels good to me. Clemson is a reeling football team. I don't think they've really found a true identity. Syracuse, if you go back to week 1 against Tennessee, of course they got trounced if you look at it on paper, but they did put up 26 points against a pretty solid defense in Tennessee. Clemson, obviously, sitting at 1-2 on the year, struggled with Troy, lost outright to Georgia Tech, lost outright to LSU. So I like Syracuse with a big number at 17.5. I feel like there's no way that I don't find something to play on the orange, and I think Syracuse covers.
All right, so you think Clemson's going to win though?
Yeah, I think Clemson probably wins the football game, but I've got Syracuse definitely covering 17.5.
Yeah, I think Dabo would probably be in some hot water if he lost to the Syracuse Orange, and to drop to 1-3 on the season. Okay, who you got next?
Yeah, another one that I've gotten, I just can't seem to get away from them, is going from one orange team to another. The Big Orange in Tennessee, coming off a heartbreaking loss there to Georgia at home. A game that they probably should have won. That was one of my locks that did hit last week. I had Tennessee plus 3.5. That landed.
Just barely, but it landed.
Well, I mean, ultimately, I also said to play him on the money line, which also should have landed, because if the kicker doesn't hit the 15th row of section AAA whatever on the right side of the field by the coolers, then it's a 3-point victory for the Vols, and everybody's happy. But it didn't work out that way. So anyway, this week, inferior opponent of UAB. We've seen in years past what Josh Heupel likes to do when he has a lesser opponent. They're playing UAB at home. The line is 37.5, and I like the Volunteers to absolutely put up as many points as they possibly can. If you look at lesser opponents that Tennessee has faced this year, then you'll see that against East Tennessee State, they put up 72. Against Syracuse, they put up 45. Even against Georgia, they put up 41. So no stranger to points. That defense is very, very good. I know, listen, I understand they gave up 44 to Georgia, but it's Georgia. Those teams were just trading blows all throughout that football game. Very entertaining game, by the way. But Tennessee at 37.5 over UAB, that's a lock. I would lock that in.
All right, a lot of points for that one.
I'll make a point also that if you look at UAB, from playing Alabama State, 52-42 victory. They lose to Navy 38-24. Then they play Akron where they win by 3. So, give me Tennessee to win as big as they want to in this game.
All right, 39.5 points. That's a lot of points, but you're giving it to them. All right, game number 4. What do you have?
Yeah, so this one's kind of interesting because, apparently the odds makers think this game could go either way, and I understand why to a degree. Michigan at Nebraska. This is a 2:30 game. Michigan is a 2.5-point favorite. Obviously, they're 2-1. Nebraska's 3-0. I'll lean Michigan here. I'm going to say Michigan money line, so you don't have to worry about the points. I mean, it's a close enough spread that you could go money line, and you have to risk a little more in order to win. But I think it's a safer bet. That way, you don't have to worry about points. If it's a 1-point game, if you end up going to that triple overtime mess where you got to make 2-point conversions or something, you're not knocked out of being able to win the game here. But Bryce Underwood to me is going to be the difference maker. He's very good. And then Justice Haynes as well, the running back at Michigan there. Now, obviously, you're playing against a really good quarterback in Raiola at Nebraska. But I like Michigan in this game. I think they have more consistency. I understand it's in Lincoln, Nebraska, but as Sammy McCluskey would say, the only thing in Nebraska is corn and sadness. So they're going to be sad on Saturday. I think Michigan wins outright. Again, on the safe side, I would play the money line, so you don't have to worry about points. You can just sweat win or loss.
Well, the Cornhuskers, there is corn, but there hasn't been a whole lot of sadness. Nebraska, 3 straight home wins, fourth game in a row at home. Given I know that they haven't played superior
12-28 of last year doesn't count.
What?
12-28 of last year doesn't count as 4 straight home games.
Well, they have I'm looking at the schedule: Cincinnati win, Akron win.
Yeah, that's 3. So let me make a point here. So Holy Cross, they play and they win 59-7. This is Nebraska. They play Akron, they win 68-0. They play Cincinnati, the one team that is any competition whatsoever, and they win 20-17.
I know
these scores are telling.
I know. My point that I was trying to make before you interrupted me was that they're 3-0. I think this is probably the game. You're giving Michigan the points there, but I think this is the game where you kind of decide where we just figure out whether Nebraska is like actually a decent team or not, or if they're just these that, like you said, they played Cincinnati, they barely won that game, in Akron and Holy Cross, who didn't have a prayer.
Yeah, I'm glad you worded it as a decent team, because I don't think Michigan is a measuring stick in the Big Ten by any stretch, at least not this year. They lost 24-13 at Oklahoma, which it's hard to win in Norman, and that Oklahoma team is much improved from a year ago. So that's really good news for Brent Venables, the head coach there at Oklahoma. So, but I think Michigan has too much. I just think they have too much when I look at it on paper. And I understand it's 2-1 versus 3-0, and it's on the road, but I still think Michigan wins outright. I don't quite think Nebraska's there yet. And they just tend to find ways to make you believe that they are, and then they find a way to mess it all up. So that's what I'm just going on historic probabilities here.
Well, and also the measuring stick, this is probably the only real measuring stick that Nebraska will have for the foreseeable future, because you look at their schedule after that, they host 5 straight home games. They host Michigan State before they travel to Maryland, travel to Minnesota, and then host Northwestern. So, and then they play USC. So they got like another 5 weeks before they even play another team that you're like, okay, like quote unquote measuring stick team, because these are all, if they're even halfway decent, these next 4 games after this are all wins. So.
So if they do get by Michigan, they're sitting at 7-0.
That's what I'm thinking, yeah. And then, then they play USC, I guess, and that's another team that you probably don't really know much about until 5 or 6 weeks into the year. They play. The only real good team they have on their schedule this year is Penn State all the way. The penultimate week of the season. So, that's a generous, what can you say about the Big Ten? But, they got 2 or 3 teams that are good, and the rest of them are all below average, mediocre teams. But, Nebraska's got to look at that schedule. That's got to be one of the easier schedules in college football.
Well, the good news for them is if they lose to Michigan, then they should be able to ride out 4 straight wins. And that'll be really good for Matt Rule, and it'll be good for the confidence of this team, in their trajectory of where they're going. I just don't think Nebraska has enough to get by Michigan Saturday. But.
Yeah, and I didn't think going into this I'd spend 5 or 2 minutes talking about Nebraska, but here I am. Okay, what's your next game?
Yeah, last game on this list is going to be Fresno State at Hawaii. I know there seems to be some weird love affair with me in Hawaii, but this time I'm actually going against the Warriors. I'm going to take Fresno State in this game. You're getting a it opened at 2.5. I guess it's bumped up to 3.5 now. If you can wait it out and see if it moves back down to 2.5 or even 3, if you want to play it there. I like Fresno State to actually win by a touchdown, so it really doesn't matter. It's just whatever you're most comfortable with. But Fresno State has been the more complete team here. Hawaii has done what I said they were going to do in the last couple of weeks. But I look for Fresno State to win this game by 7 to 10 points, at least 6 to 10. So you've got, if you look at Fresno State, they played Georgia Southern, they won 42-14. They played at Oregon State, where they won 36-27. I understand that Oregon State's not some elite program, but when you're talking about these middle of the road programs playing one another, it's very important that you realize they've won a game by 9 points on the road. Then they played Southern, where they won 56-7. If you look on the flip side at Hawaii, they played Stanford and got the win. They lost the game, like I said they would, to Arizona, 40-6. They played Sam Houston State, where they did cover. Like I said, they would, 37-20. But then they played Portland State last week, where I thought they should cover the spread, and they won 23-3. They struggled mightily in that game. I actually stayed up and watched it because I'm addicted to football. So most people would never stay awake to watch Hawaii play Portland State, but I did. That's why I like Fresno State in this game. I understand E.J. Warner, 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions as the quarterback there at Fresno State. I don't think you need to look too far into that. He's still 71-98 on the year as far as completion, versus attempt ratio. So, and then Donaldson at running back, 325 yards on the early season here. Of course, both of these teams are air raid happy. They like to throw the football around. But I look for Fresno State to have enough to cover 2.5, even 3.5 if that's where you have to play it come Saturday. But give me the Bulldogs to cover there, and that'd be my 5th lock. I'm looking to go 5 for 5 this week.
That would be nice. Luke, we're running out of time here, but do you have any more, maybe some also mentions that are some honorable mentions that you want to throw in there? A game or two that you might keep an eye on as you're sitting down and watching some of the games this weekend?
As far as games to watch, that'll be fun for you. One that I'll add as a just an added lock. It's not. I'm not really going to call it a lock. I just it's just one that if you want to play it just because you feel like it, then go ahead. Iowa and Rutgers. I'm not taking a winner or a spread here. I'm gonna on the flip side of things, I'm gonna take the total in this game. And if you'll give me 1 second, I'm gonna tell you what that is because I wasn't smart enough to write it down. 45.5 points total for the game. It's a low number. Iowa is scared to death of points. Rutgers, not a very good football team, especially with an Iowa defense. Iowa defense is actually really, really good. So 45.5 points. I'm taking the under on the total. I think that's a semi lock for you if you decide you want to play that. As far as entertainment goes and just watching good football, just to add a few games in there for you. Auburn and Oklahoma. Obviously that one's going to be watched by a lot around here. That's in Norman, Oklahoma. I think that's why you got a 6.5 point spread there. That seemed a little high to me, but I think that's accounting for the idea that it is at Oklahoma. Another game you want to look for is West Virginia and Kansas. That'll be a real fun one. You saw West Virginia absolutely take everybody into cardiac arrest in the backyard brawl against Pitt last week, where they shouldn't have even been in the game, and somehow in 4 minutes they tie the game up, go to overtime, and win it. So really, really, really fun game there in West Virginia and Kansas. South Carolina and Missouri. I'm eager to see what happens for Shane Beamer and how he bounces back, if he bounces back with the South Carolina Gamecock team on the road at Missouri, who's undefeated at 3-0 and a top 25 team. It'd do a good job to get some credibility back there after losing to Vanderbilt. So that's a fun one to keep your eye on. Florida and Miami, that's a big one at 6:30 on ABC. I know it's kind of lost its luster since Florida's 1-2, but Florida did some things that looked good in the game against LSU. Obviously, 5 interceptions by DJ Lagway is not one of them, but Florida-Miami will be a fun one to watch. The last one that I had on this list that I wanted everybody to tune into was Michigan State and USC, two undefeated Big Ten teams. USC is a 17.5-point favorite. I think that's wildly out of hand there. I think this will be a more competitive game than that. But that's a 10 o'clock game on Fox. So if you like late football and you're just looking for something to keep your eyes peeled to, that's one, Michigan State and USC.
For me, I think my eyes will be closed by then. But
we're two different people.
Anyway, so those are your locks of the week. LA's locks of the week. Good luck to him and his wallet, and good luck to all those who choose to hopefully gamble responsibly. This was LA's Locks of the Week, and you're listening to the Football Friday Tailgate Show. We'll be right back in just a few minutes.
Go Tigers.
Welcome back to the Football Friday Tailgate Show. Here for our Pick'em segment this week. We've got my friend Dustin Pollard on the show. Dustin is in Nashville right now. He was my sports editor back in the day when we were both in college working at the Florala at UNA. But glad to have him on. Glad to have my friend on here to pick some games. He knows ball. So let's get started. All right. Thanks, Dustin, for joining the show, the Football Friday Tailgate Show. I'm sure first time, long time for you. You're going to pick our games this week. You're our third or fourth celebrity, quote unquote, picker. Celebrity by way of me knowing you. We go back about 10 years, and I know that you know ball just as or more than I do probably. So figured to get you on the show and get you to pick some games. How you doing, Dustin? And are you super excited about being on?
Oh yeah, thanks so much for having me, Kadin. Yeah, we go way back. I just got in from getting a haircut, so I wanted to look good for this radio show, obviously. So, but yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited about picking some games with you, man. So let's get started.
Looking good and sounding good. All right. First game I got for you, number 17 Texas Tech travels to Salt Lake City to face number 16 Utah. Utah is a 3.5-point favorite in that game. That's an 11 a.m. kickoff their time. First real test for both teams. I think I'll be saying that a lot for some of these games. But first real opponent either one of these teams have faced. The rest of them have been kind of smaller teams that they've destroyed. So I don't know if you know anything about Texas Tech or Utah. I don't, but you're picking them. So what you got?
Yeah, first off, it's just what an early kickoff for them guys. Those are never that fun. But yeah, a lot of these games, both like Utah and Texas Tech, they haven't really played like a strong schedule so far, so it's going to be hard to really kind of judge how good either one of them are. But I do think both of these teams, they're definitely one of the top dogs in their conference, Big 12. So, but for me, I think it's definitely going to be a very good game, very close game. I like both the offenses. I like the quarterback more than that Texas Tech. But Utah, I like Dan Pierre, their quarterback. He's our true dual threat guy. He can really make things happen with his feet. Also, man, Kyle Whittingham is still at Utah coaching. Can you believe that? Like he's
been there for like 20 years.
He's been there forever, right?
Yeah, I think he has been there forever. Like literally, he's been there like 20 years.
20 years, man, and he's a great coach too. So that's what I'm going to go with Utah Utes. I think they take this one. It's going to be close, but I like Utah in this one.
I think you got a solid pick there. You can't really go wrong ever picking the Utes at home. So, all right. So we got Utah on the board. Next up, we've got number 22 Auburn traveling to number 11 Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a 7.5-point favorite in this game. Obviously, Oklahoma had that win against Michigan 2 weeks ago. Auburn, I guess it depends on if you're asking an Auburn or an Alabama fan, but, kind of mixed feelings about their start to this season. But Oklahoma, 7.5-point favorite. I think they've looked pretty impressive offensively. What do you think?
Yeah, I actually think this is going to be a very close game. I think if you're an Auburn fan, you got to be pretty happy with what you've seen so far. I think they're a much better team. I think this is the best team Hugh Freeze has had so far, which you could also argue is not saying too much. But I do like this Auburn team. I think Jackson Arnold, man, he's what he can do with his legs, running the football. I mean, he's great. The issue is that I would like to see is so far this year he's thrown for more than 150 yards one time, and that was against Ball State. So I think this is one of those where Oklahoma. Brent Venables is a great defensive coach. You can say whatever about how he's been as a head coach so far, but he knows defense, and I think they're going to really try to stop the run, make Arnold throw the ball, and that's going to be the key part of the game for me. But I don't know. I'd like to see Arnold do it. I still haven't seen him do it, like make the throws with his arm, and so I'm leaning towards Oklahoma in this one. I think it's going to be a close game. I think Auburn's gonna hang in there with them. But John Mateer, man, that guy. One word to describe that guy is just a gamer. Like he is. He is. He kind of reminds me. He's not as good as Baker Mayfield, but he reminds me of when Baker Mayfield was at Oklahoma. Just the way he plays the game. But I think Oklahoma wins this one close.
All right, Oklahoma on the board for the second pick. Next up, we got South Carolina traveling to number 23 Missouri. Missouri's I always say big when you get to point spreads like 9.5. I just feel like that's I know it's not in college, but I'm thinking of it like NFL lines or whatever. 9.5 is a lot to me, but anyway, 9.5 point favorite. Obviously, South Carolina was like one of those teams in the SEC that was kind of like a dark horse preseason. The results so far have not really last week's result hasn't really panned out that way. First week against Virginia Tech, I thought they looked pretty decent, and then obviously they had like last week's fall apart at Vandy or against Vandy. But and then Missouri, I think probably about the start you expected from them. Who do you got in this one, Dustin?
Yeah, like you said earlier when you started about the spread being 9.5, I think that was a little high as well. But this is, I don't work for Vegas, so they probably they seem to know more than me. But I do think this will be a close game as well. South Carolina, like you said, they have just been a little disappointing, especially on offense. I think that's been a lot of people heading into the year had like a big high expectations on Sellers, and yeah, he did get injured last week against Vanderbilt. I think Vanderbilt still wins that game last week, even if Sellers never goes out. To be honest with you, I just think Vanderbilt's a better team. But for Missouri versus South Carolina, Missouri is at home. Pribula, the transfer from Penn State, has been very accurate with the football. The running back Ahmad Hardy, looks like he may be the best running back in the SEC so far. Like he's looked fantastic. I think Mizzou's going to win this one. Yeah.
All right. I think you're right about that one too. I watched a little bit of that South Carolina Vanderbilt game, and yeah, as soon as Sellers went out, it was definitely over.
Yeah. I hear a lot of South Carolina fans complaining about Mike Shula, which sounds,
well,
Bama fans could, or like you say.
I don't know if I told you. I mean, because we had text conversations about after that first game at Alabama, and thankfully they're not playing this week because I feel like you might have brought up my comments about Ty Simpson and your boy Luke Shepard has definitely brought him up on the show. My comments about Ty Simpson, but
I've been a Ty Simpson believer since I saw him step on. I like the kid.
Yeah,
and look, he's looked fantastic the past couple of weeks, but Georgia will be, another test, so we'll see how that goes. But I do think Tyson's legit.
Yeah, my tongue-in-cheek prediction was that before the season or after that Virginia Tech game, South Carolina played, I was like, South Carolina's gonna win the SEC. Kalen DeBoer's gonna get fired, and then Mike Shula's gonna be the next head coach at Alabama. I don't think that's gonna happen, but. All right, next up we got number 9, Illinois, traveling to number 19, Indiana. Illinois on the road is a 6.5 point favorite in this game. Illinois had that big win over Duke 2 weeks ago, but really I guess this is probably the first real test for both teams this week. I never thought, 3 or 4 years ago that I'd be seeing the Illinois Illini in the top 10, but there they are. And probably could say the same thing about Indiana. Two teams that I never thought in my life I would see in the top 20, the top 15. Of course, Indiana had that, huge season recently. But who do you got? Who do you like in this one? Like I said, Illinois a 6.5-point favorite on the road at Indiana.
Yeah, like you said, mentioned Illinois at number 9, Indiana at 19. For college football, it is kind of surprising. You would expect this in college basketball, I guess. Indiana's looked pretty good last year. Obviously, they made the playoffs. But, to be honest with you, I think Illinois is going to come in and beat Indiana at home. I like Illinois' pass rush. I think their defensive line is good. Outmeyer, the quarterback, has been pretty good for the Illini. I just think that the pass rush is going to cause problems for Indiana's quarterback, Mendoza. He's a young guy. He's got a lot of potential, but I like Illinois in this one. And good old Brett Bielema, he's the coach of Illinois. See him getting a big win like that. I think Bielema, as Brett Bielema, is he the guy? If you typed in ChatGPT, like, can you create an image of the most stereotypical looking Midwest college football coach? I think he pops up an image of him. So
yeah, he would definitely be up there.
But I think Illinois wins this one.
All right, and my final game for you, Dustin, Florida at number 4 Miami. You lived in Miami for a while. The Hurricanes are a 9.5-point favorite going to this one. Billy Napier on the hot seat after 2 straight losses to USF and to LSU. Your boy Luke Shepard, the LSU fan, I said last week in that game that when they had that, I don't know if you saw that press conference with LSU's coach. Why can't I think of his name?
Oh, Brian Kelly.
Brian Kelly. I was about to say Chip Kelly. I don't know why. But Brian Kelly in that interview before the Florida game said, "Oh, Billy Napier's a great coach. I don't know why he's on the hot seat, blah, 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 blah." And I said, Brian Kelly's hedging his bets in case he got beat. He could say he got beat by a great coach. But Billy Napier on the hot seat last week against LSU had quite a few turnovers in that game and ended up losing by, I think, was it 20-10 was the final. And then Miami getting, obviously the big win over Notre Dame in week 1, beating USF, who last week who beat Florida, upset Florida. What do you think about this one? Some people are saying Florida's going to win this game, come in and upset Miami. When I was researching for this, I saw 2 clips on ESPN of guys, predicting Florida to win this game. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I don't think Billy Napier, a.k.a. Sunbelt Billy, I don't think he's going to beat the allegations. I think he's going to I like Miami in this one. I think Miami, it's legit. I think we'll probably see – I think we'll see with the playoffs. Carson Beck has been actually very good for him. I think the funny thing about Carson Beck is, like, he has some good receivers at Miami, and like last year at Georgia, I think that was he did struggle at Georgia last year, but I think Georgia's receiving core last year was really bad. They led the nation in drops, and ironically, I think Georgia this year probably has the best receiving core they've had under Kirby Smart. So after he leaves, but I like Miami, not just Carson Beck. Honestly, I think they could probably put Pitbull at quarterback and Mr. 305. I think they could probably just still win this game. Mostly because I like Miami in the trenches. I think offensive line and defensive line, I think near the top in the country. I think they're one of the best when it comes to offensive line and defensive line in the trenches. So I think that's the difference. I'm going to take Miami in this one. All
right, Miami it is. That's our 5 picks. But before I let you go, Dustin, I'll let you say your piece. I know you're looking forward to Alabama, Georgia next week. I'll let you say your piece about what you think is going to happen in that one. This is not a pick. This does not go against percentage. So you can just say whatever you want about what you think will happen in that game.
You can count as a pick. I'm confident in this. I'm
okay.
Not going to. No, I actually, this is going to be a great game. I honestly cannot wait for it. What is this? The first time Bama's visited Georgia since in 10 years, right? 2015.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, and that time Bama won 38-10. I remember that 2015 wasn't that the first time Alabama going into that Georgia game, that was the first time Alabama was like an underdog in like 20 something. It was something crazy like that, and then Bama just destroyed them, and then went on to win the national championship. This year, it's Tim Keenan being back, I think that's going to be huge. How well he's, how healthy he is out there. I think him being gone was big, especially in that Florida State game. I think the good news though about him being gone is I think that London Simmons, the true freshman defensive lineman at Bama, I think he's looked fantastic these past couple of weeks, and him getting those reps I think has been good. Like I said earlier, I'm a Ty Simpson fan. I was impressed with Gunnar Stockton though at Georgia last week against Tennessee. Like, man, what a baller, right? Like that throw, that fourth and sixth throw to the touchdown. I mean, just a thing of beauty. I mean, I think this is the key for Bama is just like not letting Stockton run. That's the Achilles heel for Bama's defenses under Kane Womack is just stopping quarterback runs. I actually like Bama in this one. I like Ty Simpson. I think the receivers at Bama are just so good, and getting Jam Miller back as well. I think Bama is just how do they stop the run, and then on offense is how's the offensive line perform? I think that's another biggest question mark for Bama is their offensive line has once again been disappointing. I think they've been disappointing every year since 2020. Like 2020, they were fantastic. Since then, you keep hearing in the offseason, oh, this is going to be a great offensive line, and they just kind of disappointed a little. So, but I think Bama goes in and wins. Actually, I think they get the upset.
All right, bonus pick from Dustin Pollard. Alabama gets the upset over Georgia next week. Dustin, thank you for coming on the show. Really appreciate you. That was great. That was probably the best pick'em segment we've had all season, or at least the most in depth. I think maybe you should start hosting this show and give me a break.
And that doesn't mean anything if the picks are wrong, so we'll see how that goes. I'm watching.
Well, if it sounds good, Dustin, then that's all that matters.
It's like that's you ever see like the celebrity picker in College Game Day, and the celebrity picker doesn't really give a reason. They just pick, and like you look back and like, well, they got them all right. Actually, they got them.
Still the greatest. I think the greatest picker of all time was like Timothy Chalamet, your boy Timothy Chalamet, week, and like he just comes in. He
knows ball though.
He does. Ball. And I was like, that's not who I expected to got every single pick right. Crazy.
Well, how many people can you're picking your bracket during March Madness, and you like your girlfriend, your wife, whatever, like, or somebody in your life who doesn't even just when you're like the buddies that doesn't even watch college basketball, and they do their picks, and you look at the end and like, this is much better than mine.
Because they don't overthink it. They just say, oh, this mascot's cooler, so I'm going to go with this one.
That's what I like these guys. I like this team's colors,
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, Dustin, thank you for joining the show, and we'll try to get you back on later this year, maybe closer to playoff time, and get you to pick some more games, but I appreciate you coming on.
All right. Thanks for having me on. Take care, buddy.
That's it. Thanks again to my pal Dustin Pollard for joining us in our final segment and making his picks. I hope you guys enjoyed that analysis from him. Stay tuned on WGOL for up next. We've got the Coach Dustin Goodwin Show, followed by tonight's broadcast of Russellville at Ardmore. Me and Ty Wells will be on the call for that, and we hope you stay tuned to listen to Golden Tiger Football on your home for Golden Tiger Football, WGOL. You've been listening to the Football Friday Tailgate Show. Happy Friday. Take care.